It's not the blockchain is the solution for everything. It's a solution to certain problems that conventional technology currently doesn't solve. So let's explore your ideas and how feasible they are, and they'll be judged on that basis. The four principal ideas today. We've got monetizing open source technology, we've got local exchange of foreign currency, and you've got smart contract solutions for loans, and your idea is options, share options.
Value chain distribution protocol, and what we're trying to do is basically subsidizing open source projects that, in order for programmers to make do while doing their job. Right. A couple of problems that we're trying to address. First, open source projects are lacking in funding in Hong Kong, and also it is impossible to distribute small, since we want to gather payments from local businesses, but since the payment is so small that we can only make do it on the blockchain. And also there are also problems with merchants lacking incentives to support local startups, open source projects. Right, how does it work? When the customer gives payment to the merchants, through our software, we distribute the payments into different startups so they can be further given to their employees. And this goes through a wallet, not a wallet, a file that we've created to accumulate the small amount of currencies over time. And when it is big enough to go through the blockchains, our system will automatically send it through the system.
Set, you've got your flight booked, you've got your hotel booked, and the only thing that's missing is your local currency. That's exactly the issue I was facing last year when I was preparing for my internship in Brazil. I was going to all the exchange places and chunking mentions, even at the airport, nobody had Brazilian reals. So I ended up being forced buying Brazilian reals in Sao Paulo at a very bad exchange rate. That's when I came up with the idea of P2P-FX, which stands for peer-to-peer currency exchange. So maybe at P2P-FX, we try to make currency exchange convenient, cheap, and transparent. So you may be asking yourself, why do we need another exchange platform? Because we already have all these banks in place. But these banks, they charge bad exchange rates, they have high commission fees, and it's very time consuming, especially for us living in a hangout, going all the way to a bank could take an hour or two. And then only to arrive there to find out they don't have a currency, that's very frustrating. So we'll be targeting students. And why students? Because in Hong Kong alone, the top 3 universities have 50,000 students. And of these 50,000 students, about 10,000 students are incoming and outgoing exchange. And that really shows as a continuous flow of diverse currencies. And students tend to trust each other more than strangers. And these students have very limited cash flow, which I'll get back to later on. So we did a preliminary survey of 240 students. And of these 240 students, 30% of them traveled to more than 4 countries last year. And the majority of the people hold more than 3 currencies. And the issue is really about that these people keep the currency at home. And for students who have limited cash flow, that's dead weight. That's money they can't use. So looking at a more macro level, the youth tourism has been growing at a steady rate of 3.3%, and the traveling frequency of youth has been increased by 20% over the last year. So just in case you're not familiar with the currency exchange market, I'll just explain to you. You have the buy and the sell price, and usually the market rate is in the middle. As you can see, if you divide these two numbers, the market rate should be at 1.1. So each side loses 10% every time you have a transaction. And we try to get closer to this rate. So just about the top of the team, I'm Johannes, I'm the entrepreneur. Long is the backend developer, and Oliver is the front-end developer. So yeah, we'll be adopting a pure play model. And how do we make money? Initially, it's all going to be free because we want to be getting people on board, getting more currencies, getting people to check it out. But once we have the amount of good mass of people, we'll then be starting to charge money. Both sides, so both the seller and the buyer. Because the problem is, if you are going from Hong Kong to the States, and you have, you sell off your Hong Kong dollars, but let's just imagine that nobody has US dollars. What do you do with your Hong Kong dollars? Because outside Hong Kong, nobody really wants Hong Kong dollars. So we're using Bitcoin as an intermediate currency. That means that I sell my Hong Kong dollars to somebody else, and they'll give me bitcoins. And these bitcoins I can then sell somewhere else for a different currency.
So basically, you have lots of small companies in Hong Kong, especially high-tech companies, that need that need capital. And right now, there isn't a very good way for companies at the seed stage, which typically need funding of about $10,000 US to get capital. They can't get bank loans. There's no IPO market, and so this is really ironic because there's just capital just flying all over the place. And so one of the problems is to ask why companies have this problem, and this goes back to some of the peculiar areas of the banking system. Because one thing that happens is if you go to a bank and you ask for a loan, they'll give you a specific type of loan. If you do a mortgage, it'll be a 15-year mortgage, and they don't have the ability to customize the loan to the specific needs of the customer. And the reason that they don't have that is they just don't have the infrastructure to do that, because essentially they write the loans on paper and they can't put in an algorithm that describes how the loan is being paid off. You then also have the problem that when you talk to small companies, you'll find that lending money to a small company is actually much.
You got the light on your face, sorry.
It is much more difficult than lending to a large company. If you want to lend $10 million US, that's easy. If you want to lend $10,000 US, that becomes very difficult, because every small, if you lend to like a $10 million or $20 million company, $10 million and $20 million companies tend to be very similar, whereas every $10,000 company is very, very different. Because if you have a company that's got 200 or 300 employees, you're gathering 200 or 300 people, and you end up with sort of the average of those 200 or 300 people. Whereas with a small company, it's like 5 people, and you have radically different capital requirements, you have radically different credit risks, you have radically different assets, and banks right now just absolutely cannot handle this. So this project sort of came out of my own work. I'm actually providing loans to small companies, and I found that I absolutely had to use smart contract technology. I needed to use this because first I needed to customize the loans to be something to meet the needs of the company. But the other problem is that you end up with some very, very complicated conditions. When this thing happens, if this thing happens after 3 months, then you owe me money in this situation. So then you run into the problem, which is a problem that banks have with derivatives, which is that you need to make absolutely sure that the guy that you're lending money to understands the terms of the contract. First of all, it's just the right thing to do, not to sell people financial products that they don't understand, which is something I believe. I believe that you shouldn't sell something to somebody that they don't understand. But it's also a legal risk, because what happens is that you don't want to be in a situation where you sell them what's essentially somewhat of a derivatives product, and then they come back and say, well, I didn't know I was going to owe you this much money. So let me do a quick before and after we had before we came here. Essentially what happens is that you fill in sort of the parameters of the contract, you fill in like the credit requests. This is an interesting contract because this is a contract designed for companies that have gotten grants from the Hong Kong government and need cash flow loans against those grants. Now, the problem comes in with this section. And you can actually press analyze it. There's this huge section of like terms and conditions, pages and pages of legalese. And what's really strange is that we're so used to signing like pages and pages of stuff that we're supposed to understand that that we just get used to it. But the issue here is that I actually want people to understand what they're signing. And the other issue is that one of the things that happens is that if you sign a mortgage, for example, you're actually expecting that the terms and conditions are the same as every other mortgage out there. So you don't really have to think in order to sign it, and the bank really doesn't have to think in order to put the terms out there. The problem that we have in this situation is that because these are actually customized contracts, right? You've got like 30 different clauses, and it might be that one of them happens to be fairly important. And you actually want to be in a situation where people understand what it is that they're being asked to agree to. And so this is something that we did to get to work, but it's sort of a mess. And so Jerry will explain how he went through and sort of cleaned up some of this stuff.
Okay, so I create a new page here. So this is the previous display, which is seems a little bit messy. And here I make it a little bit tidy now. As you can see when the contract is created and who is the borrower, who is the lender, and also what's the background, what's the contents of this contract. Later on, you will focus certain clauses of this contract. You can click this button and view the details about it. The further idea about how to make it more readable is that add some links for some financial or law terms, so the users can know it better. So that's it's still an ongoing work. However, we separated the clauses in different subjects, different blocks. So now it makes it more clear. So that's the basic work now. And I think if you want to contribute it to make it more beautiful.
Yeah. And the other thing is all this stuff is open source. So the template contracts are all usable for anybody that wants to do a loan. And the other thing about this is that there's some actual the actual terms and conditions was drafted by a lawyer, and so the actual conditions have been vetted by legal counsel.
Growing companies manage employee stock options on a Bitcoin sidechain to allow employees to maximize compensation and potential value. So one of the problems with employees right now, or challenges, is they want to recruit, want to train or retain and motivate their employees. It's really hard to do that. And so traditionally they offer them options or equities. So with equity, one of the things is if you give them equity, you gotta file a lot of paperwork. It has to go to the government. They might get voting rights and stuff. So another way is you just offer options, and it's a lot lower barrier for companies. All it is, it's basically like an Excel spreadsheet. You say this guy has this many options, and that's it. So, but if I'm an employee and I'm going to get an option, I'm a little bit worried. How much is it worth? Like, they issue an option and it's at this price, but I don't really know what value the company's at if it's not publicly traded. It's still privately owned. So, like, the value, I'm still uncertain. Also, what are the terms involved? If you're issuing options and you only get it after, like, 25% of it every quarter, like it vests over 4 years, 25% every year. Like, is that enforceable? Is that, like, it's all in an Excel spreadsheet. Like, how do you know that's gonna work out down the line? The other thing is, if I leave the company, like, am I still gonna keep my options if it goes public? Like, they have the spreadsheet, so I have no way to actually get in there except they wrote me a contract when this company was worthless. Now it's $1 billion company. Am I gonna sue them for, like, how much money is it gonna take for them to sue them? So these are worries as employees, and then as investors, there's other worries. So how many options did this company issue? Like, what states were they at? Like, how much options were available? How much are vested? How much are still in the company? How much are actually converted into stocks? So it's a very big due diligence issue for them. They have to actually go to every employee and say how much options did they give you and everything. So my idea was to put together a platform, put the actual option structure on the blockchain. And what you want to do is you want to start, instead of assigning stock options to the employee names themselves, you can just assign to crypto addresses. And so the benefit of that is you can check the ownership, you can check the transactions. If you make this sidechain public, like it exists forever, you could also challenge them in court and say, yeah, you never changed these things. So as an employee, it gives me a peace of mind. I think it's actually worth a little bit more. So there's additional benefits that come along with making your options public. So first of all, it's very transparent. You can make you can put the whole sidechain out in the public, and it's outside the corporate control now. It's like a third party. You can verify it as a third party. So if you have any